It's the importance of who's on the team, who are you building with, and then also what are they doing within the industry?
The collective pause that I'm hearing, Laura, you have, and I'm still in, is really thinking about before I deploy capital, who's going to be a great acquisition target, right?
Mhm.
As a successful exit and pushing that founder to include that into their nomenclature that this is part of the avenue for success is I don't need to be a unicorn and build it myself and either take it public or whatnot or hold on to it forever. It could be very much I'm going to build a solution that's going to be gobbled up by a big place that
Right.
already has users. They don't see me as a threat. They see me as a necessity to make their platform that much stronger. And I want to be reasonable about that and go join that team or possibly exit and then do my customary amount of time and then go build something new, which is now really conceivable given AI that a founder doesn't need that one crack at the plate to make it a grand slam. No, they can get singles, doubles, and in the time to create businesses, it's so fast. So yeah, it's
No, I love that.
well,
And I want to call out part of what you said there is you still talked about the importance of relationship, right? Especially as someone's bringing forth a solution. It's like, well, if something's embedded, if they have that relationship going. We were on a call the other day and we saw a very interesting solution that was heavily AI based. And so, I was thinking about back and forth. What does that mean? What does that mean downstream? But there was an individual on the call that was a member of that team that is so highly respected in their field that the people who are generally very cautious and very tight-lipped and very, we need to be safe about this, which we all are, granted, gave me a call after and they said, if they open up for funding, we are interested on the basis nearly alone that this person who is so highly regarded as part of that team. And again, it goes to show, and we wouldn't just do it based on that, just for the record. It'd be one
yep.
of many. However, something that could have gone completely different from a conversational aspect to say, well, it's a technology that might, X, Y, and Z go down the path of maybes, because that one person was there on that team. It shifted the feeling that they had about that opportunity in a way that I had not even anticipated. So that goes to show again that it's the importance of who's on the team, who are you building with, who are you kind of surrounding yourself with from an experience standpoint, and then also what are they doing within the industry? Just like we're having this conversation today and we're sharing our thoughts, our experiences. People can watch it and they can see a little bit more about who Paige is, who James is, who Laura is. But what are others doing out there? And if I were a founder, I'd be creating some thought leadership pieces like this. I'd be creating content. I'd be sharing my expertise, my knowledge, so that when I came knocking or sending an email that was, not completely canned to someone to get their attention, I can be searchable. How are you showing up in this world? And how are people going to feel about you after, they've gone to that website or they visited your LinkedIn or your Instagram or, your TikTok even, who knows? But how are you going to stand out in a way that's meaningful so that when you do come to the table, people already have a sense of this is someone who I truly want to break bread with and get to know more and potentially grow this relationship.
You have shared a lot about obviously what you're looking at when it comes to founders, the risks that you're assessing when it comes to AI and the tools and the at the end of the day, the solution, right, that they're bringing to the table. Can you, without getting into anything, confidential, can you share just some examples of those investments, those connections that you made during TFC and kind of walk us through what those relationships are looking like? Really anything that you wanted to bring to the audience and share about your experience with us in Greenwich.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, TFC was a culmination of a lot of things in one amazing environment. And we talk a lot about in this conversation around the opportunity to be around people. And, post-COVID era, a lot of us are used to being on Zoom or doing any kind of Teams meetings, et cetera. But to get folks in the same space, to share meals with them, to engage with them, to interact with them, there's a lot of value and meaning there. So I think number one, the opportunity for us to all come together and how it felt to go through the process of like, you've been selected, right? This is not a open door, open policy, like anyone can come. This is a curated experience for both funders and founders to come together around a table because James, you and your team have done the work to understand the elements that are surrounding us to say, this is going to work. We know it is, and here's why. Here's the shared interests of the group, and here's why we've curated it in such a way. So I want to call that as number one, right? It's not the, innovation theater, as they call it, right? When people just are pitching to perform and they're presenting while investors evaluate. It's very intentional interaction. So that, to me, number one was one of the most meaningful parts of TFC. And it was a very balanced dynamic too. So for folks who have in their mind's eye what they think the experience is, you may be correct, you may be incorrect, you may never know. But for me, it was great to have those real conversations, and it was a little bit of a full circle moment in two instances. So rewinding about a week before TFC in Greenwich, there's this little conference called ITC Vegas. And it's me and 10,000 of my closest friends all in Vegas, kind of interacting and meeting. And there was one evening I was invited out to dinner from an investor, and they said, "Hey, we have this company we've invested in. They're doing amazing work that I think would be relevant to Nassau. We really want you to meet them." And they told me all these amazing things. So automatically, I'm feeling the good vibes because I trust this person, right? And it goes back to our earlier part of the convo. I trust the person who's telling me this information about this company doing amazing things. So we had a lovely dinner, we connected, and then fast forward, I got to spend a few days with them in Greenwich. The company that we engaged with is Kadence, and Darren and Camilo were there from the Kadence team, and it was a really awesome opportunity for us to understand the solution that they're bringing forward into the market. The going back to the who's at the table, very, very strong team, very, very interesting work that they're doing, and they shared information in a way that was easy to understand. They had the clarity, right? Going back to the simple things, they had the clarity. They had the right folks, the right experiences, and they were solving a problem that's relevant in the space. So we had a wonderful opportunity to engage with both Camilo and Darren over those few days. And then subsequently, we had made an investment a few months later. So it was an exciting opportunity to take something where it was brought to my attention twice by two different people, both with positive intention, to say there's some there, and then to be able to bring it forward internally here at Nassau and work with our investments team to make that investment. So they were actually our first investment within our portfolio. So they already have a special place in my heart, but it's been a really good experience for us to continue to engage with them and have conversations around how can we help each other in this process, and then where can we provide value? Because at the end of the day, depending on the investor, the money is important, but the money is only part of the equation. What we find is we have folks sitting here within our company who have decades of experience of all different sorts and varieties, who can provide input, respond to questions, share some of their own stories of here's what we've done, here's why it worked, here's why it didn't work, here's what we've learned, and really engage with the team in a meaningful way. So that's something that we like to do here at Nassau is when we look at companies that we're seeking to invest in, we want to do more than just provide funding to get them to that next step. We want to be able to interact and engage in a way that's meaningful for both of us. Because that, rewinding back to 2019 with the incubator program, was one of the biggest values. Like, yeah, we were engaging with a lot of startups and scale-ups, but they were engaging with us. And bringing that innovative mindset and that culture into an insurance carrier and into a building that is traditionally I'll say, lack of a better term, traditional, and bringing in folks who have that energy and that insight and that kind of veracity was awesome. So being able to do it again through these investments is something that's going to be even better, that I'm very excited about. So I would say that was definitely one of our wins of the TFC, is coming out with Darren and Camilo and the team and being able to invest in the work that they're doing.
It's music to our ears hearing you say that. Like, one of the biggest things that we try to make sure is clear is the investment is just a piece to the puzzle, but it's not necessarily the end game, right? The biggest thing is that ongoing partnership and relationships that we hope come and start building from these events. So hearing you say that is great. And for the audience who is, again, kind of vetting, is this program, like, right for me? You said you invested a couple months later, right? So it wasn't like on the spot, you're like, yep, they're getting our money. No, you took a step back. I'm assuming, did you have, like, talk us through that a little bit, like your engagement with them? Did you have like a set cadence for meetings, or how were you interacting with them to get to that decision point to say, okay, we're in, let's invest in this company?
Yeah, sure. So for us, it was conversations back and forth with our investment team, kind of brought in our folks who are on the table to really understand what problem they're solving, what solution they're bringing to the market, kind of get the buy-in from all pieces of the organization. We went through our IC process, and it was very, very eye-opening in many positive ways. I think because, service is bringing an angle versus what legal's bringing in compliance, and growth is seeing it differently from a potential standpoint than, even bringing in like head of marketing to see what they're up to. So it was a very, there was a cadence to the cadence. We did a lot of, meeting and just greeting, understanding, and then again, it's the brainstorming and bringing together. But their team was great in bringing forth the information that we saw, and then we had a lot of really open and real conversations. Because at the end of the day, no matter what company that an individual is looking to invest in, it has to be able to be a relationship that's going to work for both sides of the table or both sides of the equation. And in this case, it very much was that. But that's really a big key part of it, right? It's not only the money, it's the people, and then how they work together that's really going to show how the relationship can continue to grow and evolve into positive things.
That's great. Thank you for painting that picture. And I think it goes to, we think about another founder from that event. We were briefly speaking about this, James, before you joined us, but looking back at the kind words that Mustafa shared with us from Navierre, saying how that input that they received at the event, no, they didn't get immediate funding, but they did get a lot of really important advice that came from the funders that allowed them to pivot, make those changes, and now they're coming back into the game with another, seed round. They're going to raise more money because of what you guys told them that they should be working on. Like, that's huge. And again, there's the monetary value, but there's the value that you get from those insights that is eventually going to become monetary, right? Because you're going to put the work in. The right types of founders are going to go and grind and get those things done, and then come back to the table and be like, hey, we did it and it worked. Now we can have a similar but different conversation, right? So
Mhm.
it's really interesting how all these different stories kind of come from our events. There's no two interactions are the same. So I appreciate you kind of walking us through that process, because it's important for everyone to know, both founders and funders, that it's not on the spot. Like, it's not Shark Tank. It's different than that. It's a little bit more of a marathon than it is a sprint. So yeah, just thank you again for walking through that. Before we wrap up, though, just want
Well,
to kind
one
of
thing, Paige, to add
yeah,
on
yeah,
the
please.
Mustafa Navier.
Yeah.
I found it fascinating that time. And Laura, I'd be curious, did you see because I saw and felt this energy in the room. It went from an investment lens and it switched, and it seemed like folks put their hat of building a business, a fellow
Mhm.
builder, and they
Yes.
started to give in wisdom and insights to help that founder Mustafa, who's incredible, right, on his own regard. But sometimes founders are working so hard inside the jar. Sometimes the label on the outside, they can't read that, right? By the way, that was feedback I got from somebody that I respect and grew in respect when they said that to me many years ago. But it almost felt like the energy in the room went from, okay, we don't need to shift towards an investment at this point. But boy, what can we collectively as a group
Hmm.
give this founder who's doing incredible things and solved something really big, and just give him affirmation around what that was. So I'm curious to get, did you see a dynamic?
Yeah.
Because it was a different than a pitch, or not even a presentation at that point.
Yeah, I agree. I felt people roll up their sleeves, right? I've known Mustafa
Mhm.
for probably about 6 years. We have a shared friend, and what's interesting again is how big and small the world is all at the same time. So again, from going from pitch to build, it was it was awesome. It was probably one of the best parts of the day. I mean, I don't know if he felt it in that moment, but he definitely walked away feeling it. Whereas like, hold on, this is great. However, if you were to consider these tweaks or these changes, here's what you open up. Here's what new opportunities are there potentially for you. And I can say that, we've been exploring in conversation what those opportunities are with him and with Navierre to say, what can we do to potentially help you here? Like, how can we help understand really the opportunities that are out there with what he's now trying to build and what the problem is he's now trying to solve because there's relevancy to us. So for us, it was, not only knowing the individual walking into that room for a few years and knowing the character and the greatness behind the mind, but then watching the growth and not only that, but the openness. And I think that that's something too to call out about the environment of TFC. There's a trust factor and there's a psychological trust factor that I think is very important because when you are a founder and you are sharing, it's almost like you're sharing all about your most beloved child. Like I'm going to tell you all of the secrets and all of the things about this child that I love the most, and you're hoping that people are going to love your child as much as you love your child. And some folks are like, open to feedback and they said, you're right. If we do A, B, and C, I can see how my child's going to get even better. And other folks are like, no, my child's perfect. I don't need your feedback. And so it's just a completely different experience. But the psychological trust that's in TFC, not only from the founders, but the funders, and the openness of conversation on both sides was remarkable. And that's what led to, I think, that experience where Mustafa could say, yes, tell me more. I want to hear from you. Acknowledge the folks that were in the room, the decades of experience within this regulated area. And he knew there was value there. So he accepted that value. Did he take every bit in piece? I don't know. And that's almost like irrelevant to the conversation as far as he could have or he couldn't have, but that wasn't the point. It was the point that the funders were saying, I see something bigger than the horizon you're painting. Let me tell you what it is, and here's why you should consider it. And then he took it and ran. So it's just, I think, one of the biggest successes of the Greenwich group.
It just was a total shift in the room. And you had that moment of like, are they going to be receptive to this or are
Right.
they going to get offensive? To your point, I love the kid analogy. That's fantastic. But I do remember that very, very specifically because I was over, I think behind you, James, snapping some pics. And I was like, oh, the energy in the room shifted a bit. But then to hear that, months later, I mean, it's been, gosh, 5, 6 months now we're coming on, to be able to look back and say, okay, that was a huge shift for them. They processed it, they made the changes, and they're coming back stronger than ever. It's just such a great success story. So again, for those listening, the investment monetarily is one thing, but this is huge and such a big impact on these companies. So your and the rest of the funders' input is invaluable. We very much appreciate it.
I'm curious if there's something, an angle, a service, something that would benefit the founder community in light of all the different things happening with the breakneck speed of technology, the FOMO that exists psychologically, or just even the way that folks are deploying capital. Anything interesting there, Laura, that you're thinking about? How do you want to address, or how should we as an investment community address that for founders?
I think top of mind, I think it comes down to transparency. I think there's so much value that I've seen in speed. And you talk about speed of tech, but I think also speed of decisioning, whether it's yes, this is a fit, no, this is not a fit, or let me provide you feedback, whatever the situation is, speed and transparency have been paramount kind of throughout the entire thing. And I recall back into 2019 when I was getting fresh in the space, understanding the dynamic and watching how the conversations were going. And sometimes they would get like drawn out. And I kept thinking, like, why is this happening? Why can't we just tell somebody on the spot what they need to hear so they could pivot, change, move forward, or choose not to in a reasonable amount of time? So instead of the world continuing to evolve around them and change, it's like let them evolve with the speed of which things are happening. So I think that that's something for me that still stands out. And it's also access, I think, to decision makers, not just holding meetings, but holding meetings with the right folks. And sometimes it's going to be from a founder's perspective. You're going to get one introduction into a company, let's say, and you're going to take it because you don't know where that's going to lead. And it might be the end goal, right? I want to meet with the fill in the blank position. Maybe you get to meet with that person the first time, and maybe you have that conversation that either moves you forward or moves you in a different direction. But whatever that is, I think it's just the openness of getting access or at least identifying who to you is the right decision maker in that moment or the right person to give you feedback in that moment. So then you can use that as an actionable piece to either move forward into the pitch or into, conversations otherwise. But I think that that's another piece of it too, that kind of just will help the entire ecosystem to continue to move along. And then earlier when we first started speaking, we were talking about alignment around problem and solution fit. I think that a lot of founders are building impressive tech, but some of that tech is not always solving the urgent, like budget-backed problems. and they can be viewed as nice to haves instead of need to haves. And someone could need to have it to make their job easier. But if inside of a carrier, let's say, if they're unable to sell it internally to get the budget to back it, then it's almost dead in the water. So it's kind of having those conversations early at the speeds that you can to show how your tech, let's say, can solve an urgent problem that's budget backed worthy. Because at the end of the day, if there's no funding for it, it could still be amazing, but if they can't invest in it, they can't invest in it. So that's a tricky one that it comes up in sometimes. And then I would say too, I mean, the other thing that comes to mind is really around, strategic value, whether that's with capital, with relationships. There's got to be some strategic value there. And going back to AI, right? Like everyone talks about AI, but sometimes founders will hit the wall against data access and infrastructure, especially in regulated environments such as insurance. So there's got to be that understanding around, legacy systems, what's in place, what does that integration look like? Is data fragmented? Is it unstructured, hard to access? Likely yes, yes, yes. And then also, data clarity and like sanitization. Like if you have this amazing tool, but you're going to put sticky data in it or icky sticky data, like what is the output going to be? It might be a fruit roll up. Like it's still going to be good, but it's going to get caught in your teeth. And like that's not what we're aiming for, right? Like there's things that you want to go in, clean data in, clean data out. So really kind of understanding from a holistic standpoint when you're going to someone with your solution, is it going to be urgently solving a problem? Are they going to be able to or willing to throw money at it? Are you going to be able to access the data that you need to in order to, provide that value for your solution? And then having the conversations early and often to say, here's what I'm going to need from you. Is this something I can actually work with and have? And if that data is there, is it in a structured way that you can actually utilize that first round? Or what else is going to have to happen before it can get inside of your tool? Because that might help you price your model a little bit differently, or at least have those conversations up front to say, there will be a lead time because of X, Y, and Z. And now the conversations around timeline are going to be different, which is going to help you in the long run. So I think getting that clearer picture as soon as you can by having like the trustworthy conversations in the openness in the very front end is really going to help you through that journey. Because at the end of the day, especially in these industries, like trust is everything. So being able to build it as soon as you can is going to be paramount to the success that you'll find within it.
I think it's spot on, as I
So
recall a
good.
couple conversations. The speed to know is a good thing for these founders. Um, and to your point around the data hygiene, um, I think there's been probably a number of companies coming through that realized they needed a consulting component to their company to help a company get to the
Yes.
place to get the data in the right
Yes.
spot, to then get to explore and experience what they created. And it changes their ARR calculations, it changes their profit model,
Mhm.
but it's a necessary step. And the best ones have done that. Yeah.
You've also given us, just a side note, some great little nuggets that I like, sound bites. They're the fruit roll up gold. It's absolutely gold.
I'll have to share with you. Paul Tyler and I, former colleagues, we went to a great event in Chicago. Oh gosh, maybe 2020. I don't even remember. Regardless, and I was sitting on a panel. We were talking about innovation ecosystems and how important it is to have different people at the table, right? And I love a good analogy because if you can paint a picture, people are
Oh,
going to
yeah.
remember it. And I talked about innovation stew and how there's different pieces of an ecosystem, like innovation stew, right? You need your carriers, you need your educators, you need your funders, you need your founders. And I kept going on and on. Wouldn't you know it? So after this 3-day event, they write up this white paper and it's a beautifully written paper. And in there is innovation stew. And Paul has not let me live it down since. So maybe, maybe I'm onto something with my innovation food analogies, or maybe I'm really not, but regardless, they're going to continue.
You
I
are.
can.
You are. Bring it. Bring it. Yeah. And budget backed is a great little way of saying, will someone pay for it? I think that's,
Yes,
I
because
mean, I love the
right?
iterations, the budget backed. Yep.
Because if you
Oh, yeah.
can't
Great.
pay for it, like no one's going to pay for it. It could
Yeah.
be a wonderful thing. Like we've all received those gifts that we look at and we're like, thank you, Auntie. And you blink at it, you're like, I'm going to donate this. And
Yeah.
it's not that it wasn't a nice gesture, a good thought, or a thing that you could potentially use, but like if you're not just get rid of it.
Yeah.
So I think there's got to be some of that there. And then I would say the other thing too is especially in ecosystems like this that are large and small at the same time, it's not just about like creating more noise. It's got to be more intentionality. So it's things like the founder's chair. It's things like conversations like this. Things like getting the right people in the room together, whether it's introduction or over a meal. Intentionality is really where I think a lot of these things are going to be solved, whether it's getting the right folks or getting the right funders with the right founders, whatever it is you're looking to do, it's going to be easier within that network. So I think that that's the other thing too, is it's like the shift from access not only to the conversations, but then access to the outcomes that you're seeking.
Fantastic. So you kind of
Love it.
answered the final question, which was around like if you're speaking to other funders or to prospective founders, like what would you say? Do you have anything to add? I feel like that kind of hit it. I mean,
Yeah, I think
any
the only
others?
thing I'd add is don't ever be afraid to reach out. Right? I half jokingly say, like, if you're not going to be interesting, I'm not going to answer you. That might be true, it might not be true, but you'll never know until you reach out. But I would say don't be afraid to reach out to people and ask, right? You might get a response immediately, or it might take the third email, or it might be a different person within the organization or a different group, but you're never gonna know what you don't know unless you're willing to go seek it. And many times those are the folks that I respect the most before I even get to know them because they're showing me the hunger and the belief they have in what they're bringing forward. And to me, it's if someone's going to stand strong and tall for what they're doing, they deserve the time to share that. So then the person who's receiving it can decide what to do at that point. So I would say don't be afraid to reach out, don't be afraid to ask questions, don't be afraid to be transparent and speak with clarity and consistency because that is really going to be something that's going to help both funders and founders stand out.
Amazing. Okay, well, this conversation has been incredibly valuable and awesome. This was really fun. Thank you so much for jumping on and having this discussion with us. Now, we're going to give you a little time here for a plug. What do you want people to know? Where can they find you? Are you looking for any investment opportunities? Just whatever you need to drop it. And then hopefully we will see you very soon at our next event. But yeah, floor is yours.
Yeah, I would say for those looking to learn more about Nassau Financial Group and Nassau Reimagine, visit imagine.nfg.com. There we have a form on that landing page, or if you're interested in learning a bit more about where we're investing and what we're doing. We not only have our portfolio, but we have an open call. Show me that you're interested. Send in information around your company or the solution that you're bringing to market, and let's start a conversation. Let me learn about what you're doing. We are seeking opportunities for funding that makes sense for both parties, so definitely open door there. And if you want to connect directly, I'll be at InsurTech New York and name your other favorite InsurTech conferences in the 2026 season. But also find me on LinkedIn. Send me a note, make it creative, and I look forward to engaging with everyone there.
Awesome. James, any last words before we end this?
Yeah. We're looking forward to seeing you in August if you make our Des Moines meeting. And I will make sure that I'm sitting next to you
Yeah.
because the interaction in between, I was missing a lot, but I was picking up the looks. And so it'd be good to get the detail behind the looks. But always your insights are very valued. So thank you for joining us for this conversation. I know it's going to serve a lot of founders and funder prospects as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.